All right, finna go ahead and get it started. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast. For today's episode 201, we're going to be discussing the life of a champ. I'm going to be telling you my story on today's episode. A few things I want to say before I go to get it started. Make sure you go and follow me on Twitch, TikTok, and on Rumble, as well as on Spotify at Life of a Champ podcast on every single platform. For the people that do not know me, my name is Champ, and I help men build their foundation of masculinity. Right now, I'm on the quest to try to get the right message to the right person at the right time. That is my purpose, and if you resonate with that and need some help along the way, definitely reach out to me for sure. But this will be the first time that I'm going into detail about my story. I've never told this story as in depth as I'm going to today to anyone, right? And I just finished writing this up, so I want to try to give you as detailed of the truth of my own life by trying to be as open and honest and willing to take or willing to hear out your questions if you do have any questions at all. And for the people that know me personally, this is definitely going to be one where I'm going to tell you things about me that either not many people know, and even if you know me very very closely, there's a chance that there's a really really good chance that there's going to be something on here that you probably don't know about me. But yeah, I'm gonna try my best to tell as close to the, or I'm gonna tell the truth. That's for damn sure. I'm gonna tell the truth as much as I've laid out. So if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know for sure. Other than that, tapping with my YouTube Shorts as well as my YouTube clips. I've been posting more YouTube Shorts recently, so if you do, for whatever reason, cannot catch the podcast live, and still want to be able to enjoy the content that I've been putting out, definitely tap in with the YouTube Shorts. And there's going to be a lot that is going to be said on today's episode, so hopefully I can keep your interest, man. That's for sure. All right, all right. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? I'm gonna try my best to put this in as cohesive as in order as I possibly can. So I'm gonna start from when I was very very young, and I'm going to eventually progress, obviously, as I get older. I might bounce back a little here and there, but I'm going to try to be um, as precise and as in order as I possibly can remember. So to start, I think I want to start this way. Has been a recent realization that I've came to that I think has been pretty much explaining the way that I've been functioning within my entire life for a while. Um, I want to say my mother had recognized this tendency within me at an early age. She understood thoroughly, through my actions and through my behaviors, that I was oddly observant of people and of my environment. And with that being said, just by questioning and asking certain questions about certain things at a young age that maybe a lot of people at that same age, maybe like two, three, or four, maybe they wouldn't question those certain things, or maybe they wouldn't have those specific observations. And I do believe this is very much who I am today and very much how I approach life. I approach life by being very observant, being very careful with my decisions, and more importantly, analyzing and observing other people, and more importantly, the mistakes that they've made, which has allowed me to avoid a lot of mistakes. Obviously, I cannot avoid myself from all mistakes, but nonetheless, um, by asking a lot of questions and by being very, very observant within my life, it has paid off tremendously. And just questions about life that have been definitely very, very pivotal in terms of just adding clarity to my life. I feel like there's a lot of people who have, through conversation that I've had with people, there's a lot of questions that I've asked myself that I haven't exactly been able to get out of others by asking them the same question. Maybe they've never asked themselves that question before, or maybe they just haven't thought that deep. But I've always been that way. I've always been the type to question and just simply observe others. And I'll give you an example of one thing that I was really curious about and something that was of my interest at an early age. Conspiracy theories and things like that. I know a lot of people have definitely probably some interest in conspiracies. But I just found it very, very interesting. I think I was like probably less than 10 years old when the internet was a lot less censored than it is now. So I was able to acquire um, certain information that let's just say is a lot more hush hush now. And that had really exposed a lot of the world at such an early age. So I was able to see kind of the ugliness of the world and the truths that do exist that even a lot of people today and people that are much older than me are still somewhat in denial of. But I became very, very conscious of certain harsh realities of life at an early age based off of that. Um, just understanding the basics of how how the structure of society is set up and how there's a lot of people doing the same thing that are pretty much being controlled by something that is much greater than them. That has always been an interest of mine. Obviously, there's a lot more detail I can go into, but essentially that is definitely one example that I want to give that I found to be very, very interesting. And I don't really know too many kids that were that age that were looking into that stuff as deeply as I was. But it was just always something that I was very, very curious about. And um, move progressing in life, I had progressively asked more questions. I progressively learned to be a lot more observant. It definitely has helped me out tremendously for sure. I can't stress that enough. Um, and with this being said, this had kind of led me to have two fascinations that I had taken and specifically specified later on in life that came from the observations and the questions. And by me bringing up these two things, it pretty much bleeds into everything that else that I have to say, which I will start from the beginning or very, very much from the beginning. Um, the two fascinations that I've had that had really shaped my life and had pretty much can justify the ways in which I move and the ways in which I think and the things that I'm interested in. The first one is going to be articulation of thoughts, words, and speech. These are things that I've always been interested in. When it comes to a great speaker, or when it comes to um, a comedian, or when it comes to a musician, these are things that I've always been really attentive to. The more articulate they are, the more they can speak closer to the truth. The more interest that I was giving to them. And the second interest of mine that was very, very important and, like I said, bleeds into everything else um, in the decisions in which I choose is character evolution. These two things have definitely shaped the way that I have been able to function and the ways in which I find interest in things and the reasons why I make the decisions that I make and have made the decisions that I make. So, obviously, articulation of thoughts, words, and speech. This is why I have a podcast in the first place. It is because that I've admired so many great people who are able to do something similar to this, and I've always asked the question: if somebody did it, why couldn't I do it, and why couldn't I do it better? So that is why I'm making a podcast, right? That is why I'm 201 episodes deep, right? I think speech is definitely one thing that I've stressed in a few podcasts that I do believe can change somebody's life. Articulation of speech and just articulation with ideas, with thoughts. It's going to help develop every other area of your life by taking the time to think about the things that are of the most importance. And I don't think people place enough emphasis on that. So through my observations, I do believe it would change a lot of people if they had the time to spend thinking a lot more about themselves in not in a selfish way either. It can be somewhat in a selfish way, but just spending a lot more time thinking about um, and asking questions that I do believe that a lot of people simply just lack the answers to. And like I mentioned, character evolution, right? I have been on my self development journey since I was 16, and I will get into that, or yeah, I will get into that here very, very soon. But that has definitely been something that has changed my trajectory very, very quickly. It allowed me to make sacrifices very early. It allowed me to adopt responsibility of my life very, very early on as well. So, yeah, I want to reiterate this real quick before I move on to the next thing that I'm going to mention. Motivational speakers, comedians, and musicians. So I'll give you a few examples of these people who through the articulations of thoughts, words, and speech, and as well as character evolution, people like let's just say Jordan Peterson, or let's just say a comedian like Dave Chappelle, or let's say an artist like Drake or Big Sean or J. Cole. These people have definitely helped shape me in the ways in which I think, and have definitely been very paramount when it comes to my development as a man. And like I said, some people will be like, "Oh, champ, it's really not that deep." But quite frankly, it really had an impact um, when I was able to just find so much interest and passion through learning about these people, learning about their journey, um, learning about what they're trying to teach and the message that they're trying to get across. It definitely helped me out in many different areas of my life. It helped me get through so many different things. It helped me make so many right decisions and avoid so many problems for sure, just by hearing these people and just hearing their perspective, taking it in very deeply, and eventually coming to my own conclusions for sure. But moving on from that, the first significant life event that I want to mention, which I do believe that had lingering issues later on in my life, this is going to be the first of many character developments, ca- areas of character development that I will mention. This is going to be this is going to be my parents getting divorced. Now, this is one that I didn't for a long period of time. I didn't realize the impact that it truly had on me, and I would say I did it very good, and had not so much as an emotional tie towards it, because I was very young. I was like 5 or 6, just 4 or 5 or 6, something like that, somewhere in the age range when my parents got divorced, and I didn't think I knew for sure that it affected my sister probably a little bit more than I did than it affected me, just because she was a little bit older, so she was able to spend a lot of time with the both of them, a lot more, or 4 years longer than I was. So um, I'm sure that has affected her in her own way, and I definitely didn't see the full scope of how it could affect my life, and it is definitely something that in recent years I've been able to really analyze the issues within my own life that could have been changed or could have been different if I was more in a family, if I was a part of more of a family unit with my mother and my father more specifically. And yeah, I'll get into the lingering issues with that later. But yeah, getting into it, the people that I was raised by, I was raised primarily by my mother. Shout out to my mom, love her to death. My mother, my great grandmother, and my great grandparents or my grandparents, they were the people that raised me and the people that I give the most credit to when it comes to um, the character that is in front of you right now. I was raised by great people who have great morals and values, and who are just great people altogether for sure. They had definitely raised me right. They had definitely given me given me a great amount of love and support and care that I needed very much, and also with giving me some discipline that I did need as well. Obviously, everybody needs discipline, everybody needs love, everybody needs care, and I feel like they were able to give me an abundance of that. And like I said, I love my family. I cannot give them enough credit for the man that they've created for sure. But I would like to give a special thanks to my mom for just being such a hard worker, and for making countless sacrifices for me to be in the position that I am in today, talking to you today. She's she's been a wonderful woman when it comes to just taking care of whatever needed to be taken care of. Obviously, like I said, my parents divorced. I spent a lot more time with my mom than my dad, and my mom was able to step up to the plate and take on any and every challenge, make any and every sacrifice, and do a whole lot and do more than what I she probably should have. And like I can't thank her enough for the amount of support that she's given me. And like I said, countless sacrifices. If you know me personally, if you see me with my shirt off before, I have a tattoo that says sacrifices, and that goes beyond the sacrifices that I have made and will continue to make. This when you can't really see it. Obviously, there's sacrifices, and that's the meaning of the tattoo, right? I have it on my chest. You can't really see it, so you don't necessarily see the sacrifices that I make. You don't necessarily see the sacrifices that have allowed me to be in this position, talking to you today. And those sacrifices look like the sacrifices that have came from the people before me, like my mother, like my great grandmother, like my grandparents. So these are these this is very important to me, and Another person that I would love to give a shout out to, this is going to be my stepdad. Or my stepdad John. He's been a very big part of my journey with helping my family and help passively lead me. And I cannot give him enough credit for helping with my childhood and making sure that I had a great childhood for sure, at least the best that they possibly could have done. And I recognize their efforts and will continue to recognize their efforts as they've built the man that's in front of you today. Very, very thankful for that for sure. So that is definitely going to give you hopefully some of the younger years of my life. Gives you a little bit more of a foundation of understanding where I'm coming from, how I was raised, who I was raised by, and just a little bit inside of really what it takes to be me, what it took to become me, right? Getting into the next, I'm gonna progress a little bit further on. I'm going to progress to beyond my childhood, beyond middle school. I'm going to go into the start of high school because I do believe that those 4 years of high school were definitely an interesting set of years, and obviously as they are for most people. But I want to kind of break them down to what they mean to me specifically. So for freshman year, ages 14 to 15, this is around 2016, 2017. I had a great time with a bunch of friends, and as you know, high school, you're going to have friends, and that's the way that my experience was. Freshman year, I had a bunch of friends, and every single year, I had a smaller and smaller group of friends. But obviously, they became tighter, and they became people who have impacted my life much greater as the time had progressed. So to sum up freshman year, great time with a lot of great people, with a bunch of friends, for sure. Sophomore year, ages 15 to 16. This is around 2017, 2018. I had a I had a great time with life changing perspective, which I'll get into much much later. But it was definitely a year that had allowed me to develop myself, to see a little bit more into my own individuality, and just to bond with friends in a way that I never have before, which was definitely very very important to me for sure. Junior year, I was around 16 to 17. This is around 2018, 2019. This is where I started self-development, age 16 and 17, more into 17, a little bit into when I was 16 years old. This had pretty much allowed me to be in this position today, allowed me to take on the responsibility to make the sacrifices by giving myself the right input. So there's a lot of YouTubers that I've watched throughout the years that have definitely been very, very important to the development of me. And yeah, it's definitely been a great time. I've always enjoyed self development, so I'll kind of give you a little bit of a backstory with that. So, the first person that kind of got me really interested in this mindset or this mode of being is going to be this guy named Gary Vee. If you know him, you know him. Whether you hate him or whether you love him, I don't necessarily watch his content too much nowadays, but he was one of the first people, along with Jordan Peterson, who whose content really got my attention and got me thinking in specific ways that I had never thought about before, and allowed me to open up um, to entrepreneurial pursuits, as well as just character development opportunities, and to be able to see things from a different perspective, and to be able to extract as much as I possibly can from certain experiences. And that had definitely helped progress my life so much. I had read a few books. If I can give you a few books that I had read in that time, I had read Jordan Peterson's I had read, what is it, 12 Rules for Life. I had read Think and Grow Rich. I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I had read, let me see, I got a few back here, man. Yeah, and I had read The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, a book that I would recommend for damn sure. And hold on, man. All right. Yeah, those are going to be books that greatly impacted my life, and will continue to greatly impact my life for sure. So, moving on, another thing that I want to mention with my junior year, I had met my ex girlfriend, which I will mention very, very shortly. Um, that had definitely been very, very pivotal within my life with just changing my perspective and develop me as a person, which was something that I'll mention here soon. Um, senior year, ages 17 to 18. That was 2019 and 2020, which was a great year, the best year that I've ever had when it comes to um, when it comes to high school, probably the best year that I've had, the happiest that I ever was, and it was sadly cut short. Right, that was right around the time COVID was a thing, and I think it was my spring break, whatever break is the last break that you have before you get into the. I think it's maybe it was a different break. I'm pretty sure it was. Oh, I can't remember. I think it was spring break. Or it was getting into the final like a fourth of the year, which is definitely going to be probably the most important part of your entire schooling experience, right? This is where you graduate. This is where you go to prom. This is where you do all these things, man. And quite frankly, the year was cut short, right? It was a one of one situation, 2020, and it was definitely tragic, man. It was definitely tragic. COVID ended it early, and I truly never got what I deemed to be the proper celebration or closure for that chapter of my life. I kind of was just kind of the way that I see it. I was kind of just forcefully thrown into um, into the experience of life. Right? You go from being in high school, 2020, having a good time, doing the best you've ever done, and you go from that experience to, okay, well, you're going on break. You're getting into the last quarter of the year, right? You start wrapping things up. You've built great relationships with a lot of people, and you've had a great time, right? And then you go from that to say, okay, well, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks, right? I'll see you guys in 2 weeks, man. Just to wrap up the year, and then you never come back, right? It was something that was definitely uncalled for. And if you're a person that has graduated in that year and you have a similar experience that I have, I would love for you to talk about it. But it was definitely something that was cruel, man. I'll say cruel to say the very, very least, right? Like I said, I don't feel like I ever got the proper celebration or the proper closure of that chapter of my life. And that I'll speak on this, but I know this is kind of getting a little bit progressing too much, but I've had plenty of dreams, right? Like maybe I overthink this, but I've had plenty of dreams of being in high school and trying to finish up the year and having that type of mode, or like almost reliving what was supposed to be my experience of high school. And it has definitely been something that, like I said, it's something that you can't really control your dreams. So this is something that is going to manifest and is going to speak as it is the unconscious, and that's exactly what it was, right? It spoke to me saying, "Champ, like, man, that fucking sucks. This was this is what could have been, right?" And I've had plenty of experiences ever since then, and yeah, so I'm not gonna trauma dump on you too much, but essentially that was senior year, right? But getting into it after that, I had broken up with my ex a few times and gotten back together a few times, and from that overall experience, I do believe that that is what it takes to build the character of a man, which is going to be his first heartbreak. Um, and if you're going through a heartbreak right now, I'm going to give you hopefully some perspective that will shed light on the ideal situation that you should be looking towards. For me personally, obviously it was very, very impactful. It was very, very much a character developing moment, but at the same time, the perspective that I had that really helped progress my life beyond that was there's no such thing as a bad experience. And I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of go into this that approach this life with the bad experience mentality. They go through something, and I guess I kind of am a victim of this when it comes to the graduation thing. But they go through something and they don't necessarily see it as a neutral experience, right? Life is filled with a bunch of good and bad experiences, but nonetheless, they are all experiences, and there's a lot of things that can be extracted from a good experience and from a bad experience. Okay, so that is the way that I had taken that. That is the way I had taken that experience of life. Right? Obviously, it was something that meant a lot to me, but at the same time, it was something that I understood thoroughly. That was a process of developing the man, right? The man that you need to be, right? So I had to learn that lesson the hard way, just as every man has to. And like I said, if you're a person that is going through a breakup, man, that is rough. But like at the end of the day, life moves on. It builds better character, and it's something that every man needs to go through. And if you haven't went through that yet, quite frankly, Do you have an experience waiting for you that is going to change you for life? And that is exactly what it had did to me for sure. Give me 1 second. Let me read one of the comments quick. GDP Anthony, appreciate for stopping by. It really had sucked not getting or giving the proper goodbyes after spring break. Felt like an unfinished chapter in life that we were forced to skip over. Yeah, that's like I said, that's perfectly written for sure. But getting into it, after that experience, or right around that time where I was in the midst of some breakups with one woman, I had a snowboarding experience with my stepdad John. Um, that I would like to describe, and I maybe have mentioned it on a podcast or two before. But if you've never heard the story, essentially, we were it was January of 2021, and I had never been snowboarding before, so my stepdad took me snowboarding with his friends and his kids, and it was definitely a great experience overall, fantastic time. But one of the most pivotal moments of my life that I feel like not enough that I don't talk about enough. It had given me essentially the idea that led me into doing this podcast. Right, I was very much into self development at the time. I was reading Start with Why, this book by Simon Sinek. If you've never read the book, I would definitely recommend reading the book. But essentially, it had helped me it had helped me reconstruct the life decisions that I was making. Right, I had just finished high school, and obviously, when you're right around that time, you need to make some big life decisions. I'll say big life decisions. Right, there's a lot of people who are underprepared when it comes to making those big life decisions. So the way that I felt that was best going to prepare me was obviously self-educating, right? Something that I had did time and time again, even before that. And um, with this book, it gave me perspective on essentially why am I doing what I'm doing, and do I go in with the right reasons, and do people in general go with the right reasons for the decisions that they do make in life. And very, very shortly, I understood thoroughly that that's really not the case. There's not a lot of people who really spend enough time thinking about the next move of their life, and more importantly, especially at that age, there's a lot of people that are really not making the right decision. They're making a decision for the wrong reasons. They might be making the right decision for the wrong reasons, or they may be making the wrong decision for the right reasons. So, I thought that was very, very interesting. And when I was watching this one video, I had this aha moment of um, potentially making videos. Originally, this was Evolve to Inspire, which you see right over here, right? This was how would I like to describe it? This was the root idea of what I was going to make as a YouTube channel. Essentially, it was going to be experiences and inspirational stories of the people who have inspired me most, right? So I was going to break down their story. I was going to break down their achievements, their setbacks, the problems that they had in life, the obstacles that were in front of them, and how they got over them, right? And basically tell it in an inspirational way. So those are the people that are right over here on the Inspire board that I have right there. Those are going to be the people that I had started with. So just to give you a few names if you can't see them: Big Sean, LeBron, J. Cole, Devin Booker, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, Drake, and Kobe Bryant. We're going to be a few of the names that I was going to talk about for sure. And from that, I was like, well, shit. Instead of just talking about these people, obviously they've given me a lot of inspiration. But why not try to be just as great as these people are? Right? There's nothing that is limiting me except my own self limitations. And quite frankly, I don't believe in self limitations. So I was like, I can do something just as great as them. I can inspire just like they did, just like they inspired me. And that is what I'm on the quest of doing right now. My purpose is to inspire, empower, and educate the ones around me and of my influence, and that is what I will continue to do. And yeah, that moment in my life was definitely something that was it definitely changed the trajectory of my life and the decisions that I would in the future make based off of that one idea, that one spur of the moment that needed to be had, that aha moment that I was like, wow, this is going to change a lot. This is going to be the direction that I want to go and take my life. And I wish a lot more people had that specific moment for themselves where they're like, this is for sure the right decision that I need to make within my life. This is going to give me the fulfillment that I need. And unfortunately, I don't think that's the case for a lot of people, but that was my experience for sure. Later on in that year, in 2021, I had made another big life decision that was, again, one of those character building moments, right? This was getting a gym membership with my best friend Anthony. Shout out to Anthony in 2021. I understood thoroughly that this was a life path that I wanted to go ahead and choose, which was physical excellence. I had very much associated myself with being an athlete growing up, and I had kind of gotten away from that a little bit, a little bit in my later years of high school, and um, probably a little bit after high school was over. I had wanted to get back into adopting that same identity that I had built so much of my character off of, and I thought that would be the perfect adult way of going about it, and indeed it was. It was something that had paid off time and time again, and still continues to pay off for sure. And I do believe that the things that I had mentioned previously, which were a breakup and building your body, right, being physically disciplined, these are the necessary struggles and suffering that is needed to take place in order to shape a man, and these things help shape a man the way that he needs to be shaped, right? Having or needing that physical discipline, right? This is something that every person needs, and more importantly, men, you need to be strong. Men, you have people to be strong for. And if you're not a person that is strong, you need to be a person that is striving to be strong. And if you're a person that's not striving to be strong, then quite frankly, I don't know what you're doing. Man or woman, you need to be strong. You need to be physically capable. You never know what this life has in store for you. And here's the thing: the last thing that you would like to be is not physically capable of handling up something or a situation that should be easily handled. And there's many different reasons why you need this, right? Obviously, it's pretty common sense. If you want greater um, if you want greater, what is the word I'm looking for? If you want greater, the what am oh my god, if you want a greater way of being later on in life, right? That is going to be something that you need to do and something that you must adopt, which is going to be obviously taking care of your body, man. Pretty common sense. But going back to what I was mentioning, right? The necessary struggle and suffering that is needed to help shape a man. That is a breakup. That is those situations. That is loss. That is many different things. And maybe you're going through one of these experiences, and maybe it's one of the hardest things that you've ever went through so far. But just know that it is very much necessary when it comes to the development of a man. These things help shape your character. These things help shape your experiences. And one thing I want to mention with this as well is never lose sight of what the ideal is, right? I feel like a lot of people they can get down and out about certain things, and then they have this very spiteful or very vengeful way of thinking. And I want to reiterate the point that I just previously made, which was don't don't become that way. Don't let bad experiences shape and change your ideal way of being for sure. So, yeah. All right. Getting into the next, speaking with the necessary struggle and suffering that helps shape a man. Give me 1 second. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comments, right? All right. Today's episode, the most honest and raw I can possibly be. That was my entire goal for today. So getting into the next one, this is definitely something that means a lot to me for sure. And this is something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. And yeah, so to mention my parents, right? I've already mentioned my mom. I've mentioned my stepdad. There's one person that I have not yet mentioned, and this person definitely needs to be mentioned as it is a part of my story, right? So to start, nobody's parents are perfect, and some are an example of what to be and of what not to be. My dad has been one of my biggest inspirations. He's helped inspire me to become a man of great character by living with integrity, by showing me an example of what it could be if I failed living up to my potential. I love my dad very, very much, but I did have to do a lot of extra work in order to put myself together to learn what it takes to become a great man. Some people have great dads and have to live in their shadow, and sometimes I do wish that I had that situation. But you cannot choose the life that you want exactly, right? These are just the experiences that life has for you, right? You're given these experiences that are going to mold you into the person that you're meant to be, and that is my relationship with my father. My father has been a person that has definitely inspired me to become a better man and to strive to be the best man that I possibly can be. Like I had mentioned, some people are an example of what to be, some people are an example of what not to be, and that is my own experience. I did have to do a lot of extra work. Um, there's no one in my life that had actively led me to become the person that I am today. It was all very much passive, and I do believe that there is something in utility when it comes to being a passive leader, right? Uh, Being an example of what to be, kinda, but not necessarily taking you aside. I do believe a father is supposed to take you aside and say, "Hey, this is a good moral. This is a good value. You should live by this because of this reason. You see me in my life. I'm living that example in this specific way." And that is something that I pretty much had to take responsibility for within my own life, and it had showed me a lot. And I've definitely struggled in my life a lot, knowing that I have to be able to hold myself accountable, and more importantly, be very, very hyper aware of my potential and the decisions that in which I must make. And that is what I've done, and that is what I will continue to do. Right? In my life right now, up to this point, I have really no one that's checking me too much, and I recognize very, very early on that I needed to be that active leader for myself. I must sacrifice things that are hard to sacrifice. I must live by my values, as that's what a great man of integrity would do. And yeah, for sure. With that being said, I want to kind of get into this next chapter of my life, which had definitely been a very, very pivotal one, which was an interesting moment of my life, right? Because it helped develop my character. And with this next chapter of my life that I'll be discussing is becoming lust seeking through hookup culture, and kind of what that I did for me. So I had a few months of my life where I dedicated it to taking the experiences that I learned from self development, and more importantly, within that time of self development, I believe a part of that is going to be studying attraction and dating. Right, this is something that I've always, ever since I was little, had always questioned. I had always asked the questions of what is the reason why people don't stay together? What is the reason why? What are the reasons why people do stay together, right? And from the experiences that I've had within my life, within my own personal life with my parents, that was something that had always plagued my mind, because I recognize thoroughly that in order to have the best family unit, you obviously need to have a good relationship. And I do believe a lot of that's going to deal with attraction and dating and choosing the right partner and making the right sacrifices and living by certain values, right? So that was something that was very much of my interest. So I wanted to go ahead and apply it, some of it, to the dating experiences that I've had. So I had went on a um, it was from the mid of 2021 to I think a little bit into 2022. This was my season of sleeping around, right? Discovering women, and learning about those experiences, and essentially developing character along the way, my own personal character and the character of the women that I was with along the way, for sure. And I do believe that for most of them, I would say I definitely left a hopefully positive impact on their life when it comes to hopefully shaping the man better shaping the future man, or their ideal for the future man, of what they do want. So that was definitely something that was a moment in my life, for sure. And like I said, it's definitely not the most proud moment that I've ever have. I definitely don't necessarily recommend sleeping around. It is definitely not going to bring you fulfillment in this life. And it's something that I do believe that men need experience with a lot more than women do. I'm not going to necessarily recommend it fully for anyone. If you do believe that is necessary for you when it comes to just learning the basics of understanding the masculine and the feminine, this was a huge thing of me studying attraction. This was definitely something that I had put into play, just by understanding women and things like that, which I do believe is part of the character building of a man, right? And it was definitely something that was was an interesting experience. It taught me a lot about female nature, taught me a lot about male nature as well. Kind of the ways in which men kind of not only through my own personal experiences, but through my observations, kind of the way that men work, kind of the way that women work, things that they're interested in, things that they're drawn to, things that they're undeniably drawn to, things that they'll say that they don't like, but they end up liking. I found it absolutely fascinating. It was one of the most interesting periods of my life when it comes to just being an observer and analyzing certain situations, and more importantly, problem solving. And of course, I'm making this sound a lot better than what it was, right? But that is what I've extracted out of that experience. That isn't the most noble experience that I've ever had, but it indeed was an essential experience to being able to figure out what I truly wanted, and how I was truly going to get it. And through that experience, it helped shape it helped shape me understanding understanding myself thoroughly, of what specifically I do want, and more importantly, of what I don't want, and what I'm not willing to accept, and what I'm willing to accept, and learning a lot more about my boundaries and the way I feel about certain things, and the characteristics that I'm looking for in a woman. Right, these are all things that I do believe are very, very important. And as a man, you learn through your experiences, and that was just my experience, and the lessons that I've learned from that. I was able to extract a whole lot out of that experience, which had led me to finding a woman very, very early on in my journey, just by being very, very clear with what I want. This is something that I would recommend for everybody to go ahead and do, which is going to be writing down what you want. Don't let anybody tell you anything, right? Write down what you want specifically, everything. The type of character that you want within a woman, write it down. Be very, very rigid with these, right? Live by these. Only look for a woman and don't accept anything less than this type of woman, right? If you are a person that has a lot of standards, that you want within your woman, right? Obviously, you need to be a person that is going to be excellent yourself, right? You can't necessarily expect one thing and obviously not be something that is reciprocating greatness or reciprocating a good man of character. So, with that being said, write it down. I've had a lot of friends. I remember when I wrote this list. First of all, I told all my friends, "This is what I want, man. This is what I want, man." They're like, "Champ, you are insane for wanting that. You're insane for wanting. Why would you ever write it down? It's not something you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just take people as they are. You're not supposed to analyze them, overly analyze them. You're just supposed to experience and see if you guys fit or not." I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna let you know something right now. All those people who told me not to write it down, I wrote it down, and I'm the only person with a girlfriend. So if that doesn't tell you anything, write that shit down. It's very, very important. Very, very important. Um, Getting into it, right? Kind of going back a little bit. Start of 2022. This is. I know I'm kind of going a little bit everywhere, but start of 2022. This was the start of the podcast. This was the first episode was on January 7th, 2022. I'm pretty sure I did it with Anthony. Fantastic. Like I said, I've done 201 of these, so this was 200 podcasts ago. January 7th, 2022. I'll be hitting my 3 years in January this following year. And obviously, that's taken me a lot. That's taken me a lot of places. Obviously, you can go back and watch. I'm not telling you to watch 200 episodes, but if you wanted to kind of understand where I am within the timeline, right? You can now begin to watch for these experiences that I'm going to discuss here in a few minutes, of kind of what I was going through. I talked a lot about my beliefs. I talked a lot about um, interesting observations. I talked a lot about just things that I found very, very interesting. So, at least there's that. So I want to kind of give you that frame. And getting into it as well, right? This was another pivotal moment of my life. This is going to be March 2022 to February 2023, and like I said, I'm going to kind of go many different areas with this, right? This is going to be where I was jobless, and this was probably one of the best moments of my entire life, as it was something that was very, very important that I felt like I needed to do. And I had saved up money, and I had a lot of support from my parents. Shout out to my parents. With this experience, this helped me build the foundation of the podcast. I can't remember how many episodes or how many videos I uploaded. Probably like about 400, something like that. And fantastic. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So it allowed me to develop it allowed me to develop a work ethic towards my craft. It allowed me to take time to really analyze who I wanted to be. It allowed me to get over certain things that I needed to get over. Um, yeah, like it showed me who I am and who I want to be, and it showed me what I can turn into. It showed me the modes. It showed me how certain habits are going to affect your day. It showed me many different things. But yeah, I was jobless March 2022 to February 2023, and it was a life changing experience. I would recommend this. Take a year off if you're a person that is just graduating high school and you don't necessarily know what you want to do. I would recommend taking a year off, seeing what life throws at you, seeing what comes your way. You know, building some structure, right? Trying to find some meaningful work, find some purposeful work, right? I feel like a lot of people, they take a year off, but they don't really do anything with it. They just, they just fuck off, have crazy experiences, and then a year goes by and they're like, okay, what am I gonna do now, right? I had asked a lot of questions that were very, very important. I had went through a lot of experiences that were very, very important to me within that period of time, which helped develop my next chapter of life for sure. And within this time, I want to mention another significant moment of that 11th month span. With this time, I had conquered lust. I had told you just about how I just went through the period of hookup culture and indulging within all of that, indulgent in lust. Within this time, I had conquered lust. I conquered lust, right? Whatever that looks like to you, man. But so I had went celibate for, was it like 6 to 7 months, from April 2022 to October 2022, and this was an essential experience that I found very, very interesting, and I didn't necessarily see a lot of people do this, especially after indulging within hookup culture. This was an experience that was very much unique, and I'm gonna explain why it was such a unique experience, right? So there's three type of people that exist in this world. You have the people who have sex. Well, let's just say we'll call them the majority, right? We'll call them the majority, right? Then you got the people who don't have sex, the incels. So maybe these are going to be a little bit younger. Maybe this is going to be some men. I would say probably mostly men who really haven't worked on themselves. They're what we call the incels, involuntarily celibate. They're the people who cannot get sex even if they wanted to, right? And then you got the very rare people that do exist. And I would recommend you find a woman like this if she's going to be of the highest quality. This is going to be voluntarily celibate. These are going to be people who can get sex but choose not to. So that was the route that I had chosen, as I did believe that it was going to be an experience that was definitely worthwhile, right? I had went through plenty of meaningless experiences that did shape my character for the better, but at the same time they were meaningless, and I had wanted something, and I had learned time and time again that there are meaningful interactions that are meant to be had, and I couldn't necessarily deny myself from the wisdom that I had learned. Right, I had learned plenty and plenty of times how sleeping around is such a bad thing, and how obviously you should be trying to find your partner. What's the point of all this, right? That was my mindset. I was sleeping around with a bunch of women, and I was like, what's the end goal? What's the entire point of this? And it was obviously to find a partner. But I wanted to go celibate because I wanted my actions to be in line with reshaping my view of sex and lust in general. And more importantly, within this time, I had conquered the demon of self pleasure, which is a lot of people are a victim of, right? You know what the hell I'm talking about, man. I mentioned this on a few podcasts. Y'all know what I'm talking about, man. If you're a person that is struggling with this is something that I would recommend you get some help with, right? Um, most people have struggled with this, or are a victim of this right now as we speak, right? We're talking about self pleasure. I don't really got to get into detail with the words and all that, but you know what I'm talking about, man. This was something that I had removed along with being in that stage of celibacy. This is something that I had eventually removed from my life and my lifestyle and my identity, right? This is something that was very, very much pivotal when it comes to um, locking in and focusing on the podcast, and not necessarily letting any distractions in my way. And of course, time and time again, you're going to get distracted. And that's kind of how it was. You can kind of get off track, but eventually I came back and I was very much focused, and that's how I had spent most of that 6 to 7 month period. And within that period of time, obviously I had mentioned the fact that I had already learned a lot about about meaning, about fulfillment, and how hedonism is not necessarily going to give you that. But if you're a careful observer with society, you'll understand thoroughly that society has lied about sleeping with multiple women, right? This is something that I've experienced. This is something that I've recognized is an ideal for men in society, and I don't understand 100% why this is, um, because it's not very wise, right? So I learned that society lied about sleeping with multiple women and how it would bring fulfillment, and it was somewhat of an ideal. The way that men talk about it, they talk about it like it's this great thing, and like I said, I've been a victim of this as well when it comes to talking about it in a high light. But quite frankly, if we're being really really honest, it is not ideal. It's not good for your energy. It's not good for your character. It's not good for your habits. It's not good for your tendencies. It's not good for your ability to pair bond. It's not good for your ability to um, be loyal. It's not good for any of that, right? So take it with a grain of salt. If you feel like you need to go through that experience, that's one thing. But I'm just gonna let you know it's gonna come with plenty of repercussions that you might not necessarily be ready for, and that's not necessarily something that a lot of men talk about. The repercussions of having a high body count, or believing society's lie about sleeping with multiple women, and how men can do it just fine. Men can do it, women can't do it, which I do believe that for damn sure. Women shouldn't do that. It's not really within their best interest to go ahead and sleep around. But for men, more importantly, society makes it seem like you can get away with this and nothing's gonna happen to you, and you're gonna have no consequences to your actions. That's not how life works, fellas. You have consequences for every single action that you choose within this life, and you have consequences for every inaction that you don't do in this life. And that is definitely one that comes with its own set of problems for sure. So in that 6 to 7 month period, I was in search for deep, meaningful and fulfillment, deep, meaningful interactions and fulfillment, and that is what I had eventually found. I had met this one woman who is my girlfriend today. Shout out to Jaden. I had met Jaden, and this was the person that I had manifested. I had written a lot about the character of the woman that I needed, and she fulfilled all that I could ever ask for, right? Which was a super ideal situation for me, especially at a young age. I was able to find somebody who checked off all the boxes, right? I made it very, very clear, like I recommended to you guys earlier, right? Make it very, very clear the type of woman that you want. More importantly, little bit less of a emphasis on the physical, but more importantly, because the physical attraction is going to be there anyways, hopefully. But more of a heavy emphasis on the type of character that you're looking for. Because here's the thing, her looks are not going to raise your children. Her character is going to raise your children, and that is what you should be prioritizing above everything, is your children. And I say that everything, pretty much everything, but yes, the type of character that you look for in a woman is going to be absolutely essential. The type of woman that you have is going to speak for you, and you don't have to say anything. If you have a good quality woman, you're going to see other people with less than quality women. You're going to be like, okay, what are you doing, brother? Why are you choosing that? Why are you not choosing a better decision than that, right? That's just the way that I see it, right? I see plenty of celebrities. They go with women that have been passed around, and I'm just like, man, that's a bad look, man. That's a bad look. So be very, very careful. The woman that you choose not only affects your children and their upbringing, but more importantly, it's going to affect your social perception. The social perception that people have of you. They're going to be able to feel this person's energy. And like I said, I wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't. Y'all know what I believe in, man. Y'all know what I believe in, man. But yes, I want to talk about a little bit about our relationship and my experience with Jaden. So this is definitely a very, very important chapter of my life. Obviously, we are not perfect. We have plenty of bumps in the road, and pretty much all the reasons we had some areas where we talked, and then when we stopped talking and we started talking again. Essentially, it's all going to stem back with me and my struggle to want to commit, my struggle with lust, my struggle with temptation. These are things that have held me back, and something that I knew I had a better relationship with in terms of mastering, because I had already went celibate for such a long time. I had already indulged within that and understood that it wasn't ideal. My values were already calibrated properly. And I found it very, very interesting that I still had these temptations. I still had these, I still struggled with lust. I still struggled with committing. And I do believe that it was very, very much essential to make a decision that I eventually made, which was to fully commit, right? And it was something that it is a struggle for a person. If you sleep around at all, like I said, there's going to be consequences to the actions that you take. And like I said, don't think that there's not going to be any repercussions to the actions, right? Those were my repercussions. That is a struggle that I deal with, and that I'm constantly battling, right? But one thing that I want to mention that I think is very, very important within all of this is there's going to be plenty of things that you want to do in this life, and there are going to be plenty of reasons that you can rationalize doing something that is really not that good for you. And that is what I have understood very, very thoroughly within my life. But I do believe it is much more important for you to find something that you value more than what you want to do. That is something that has changed my life completely, and the ways in which I approach certain things and I approach certain situations. I tried my absolute best to live by my values as opposed to living by my wants. Your wants are going to bring you down a certain path, and your values are going to bring you down a certain path. But at the end of the day, I would much rather deal with the consequences of choosing something that I value and giving up something that I want. No matter how bad I wanted it, if I knew that it didn't align with my values and it's not the correct decision for you to go ahead and make, it's going to give you a lot of, at least for me, I can speak from my own personal experience. If I ever had chosen a decision that would suggest me going against my values and only choosing what I want, I had regretted that decision. I had regretted the time wasted. I had regretted understanding thoroughly that I had already exceeded that point within my own values, right? And I was going against my values, and it was definitely something that I kicked myself in the ass for plenty of times, for choosing something um, that I value, or choosing something that I want over something that I value. So if you're a person that is in that conflict right now, which I do believe that a lot of people watching this are probably within that conflict in some type of area of life, try your best to be clear with your values and to live solely by your values and not what you want. Because quite frankly, your wants and your brain are going to try to rationalize things that are truly not good for you at all. And you must constantly keep your values in check, as that is what I did, and it worked out so good for me. So getting into the next one. Uh so going back to 2022, ending of 2022, just before I get into 2023, I turned 21 in December 2022 and enjoyed going out a few times in 2023, right? I turned 21, and obviously you must enjoy some experiences of being 21. Obviously, something that I had recognized within my observations, which I had mentioned earlier on in this podcast. I've been hyper observant about a lot of things. With that being said, I understood thoroughly that it's raining outside. I had understood thoroughly that I'm not trying to be like everyone else around me, so quite at least around my age. So the only way that I would go about that is by choosing decisions and making sacrifices that they're unwilling to make in order to get results that they could only dream of. And with that being said, I had voided myself from going to certain places, or going as often, or choosing certain decisions as often as they did. So I went out a few times in 2023, and I occasionally go out every now and then. I'll go out, maybe I go out maybe like on average once or twice a month, or every other month, and is definitely significantly lower than a lot of people that I observe, especially a lot of people that are of my age. Like I had mentioned, they don't take as much responsibility as I do, at least through my observations. They don't make as many sacrifices as I do, at least through my observations, and they like to have a lot more fun than I do. But I'm completely content because I understand thoroughly, like I had mentioned time and time again, I'm on the search of fulfillment and meaning, and that is much greater and lasts much longer than a good time. That's for damn sure. So, just to wrap it up, right? Hold up. So yeah, in 2023, I had traveled a few times, right? Now I'm getting into 2023. This is where I had turned 21, or yeah, I turned 21, of course. I traveled a few times, which for me personally, within my journey of life, I haven't traveled nearly as much as I would like. But I had done a lot more traveling than I did in the past. I went to California twice, and I had went to Orlando and Georgia, which were wonderful experiences, and definitely part of the journey when it comes to just kind of seeing different perspective and enjoying certain moments of life with certain people. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Moving on in later on in that year, 2023 years was the year that I had made it official with my girlfriend. Like I said, it was very, very rewarding. It is very, very rewarding. It is also a challenge, right? So one thing I want to mention as well, right? So this is something that I did not necessarily anticipate, but something that could have been expected, right? If you make a list of certain things that you want within a woman, and it's very rare that somebody will have this experience, right? You make a list for the type of woman that you want. You find a person that has exactly everything that you could ever ask for, and you're still going to. This is interesting. I have dealt with problems that are specifically with her. That I could literally go and if I were to date somebody else, I would have the same problems that I could have avoided with her. But I find it very, very interesting because it's like you would by being with a woman who is the quality of person that she is, I already don't have to deal with a bunch of the bullshit that most people have to deal with when it comes to dating, and that is fantastic. But here's the thing: problems are still going to happen, right? You're not perfect. She's not perfect. No one's perfect, obviously, and it's still going to bring up certain challenges that you would never anticipate, especially if if you already put yourself into a position to void yourself from all of the problems that everybody else is having. Now you begin to have problems that no one else has. Very, very interesting experience for sure. But nonetheless, I wouldn't have it any other way. In 2023, this was another big moment of my life. I had mentioned earlier on in the podcast, within the first like probably like 15, 20 minutes, that one of the people that had raised me, my great grandmother, um, in 2023, she had unfortunately passed away. This was a very, very big moment within my life when it comes to something that really had shook my family and something that had shook me in my life up to this point. Before that loss, I had never lost anybody that I was very, very close to. Thankfully, of course, I understand thoroughly that this life is filled with a bunch of loss, and you can never really prepare yourself for that type of loss. She was a very, very big part of my family, and if you're a person that is going through loss, it's something that is only going to be able to be resolved somewhat through time. The process of the emotion is only going to get better through time, and it was definitely something that was definitely a very, very rough patch for me and my family in that year. I definitely felt like it needed to be mentioned because she was somebody that I was super close to. I'd spent a lot of my time before I had went to school, started kindergarten. I spent a lot of time being raised by her, and she was a wonderful woman. That is the structure of my family, and yeah, she had raised me very, very well. So love her to death. I still love her. And moving on, getting into it, that was the ending of 2024. Now, this is going to be, I have yet to mention one thing that is very, very, very important to this journey. And I wanted to wait towards the end to mention this. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm doing great on time. I'm surprised, actually. So, getting into it. This is something that I want to mention that I haven't mentioned yet, and it is definitely something that I will mention. I'll mention when it is applicable. Moving on. In 2024, I had vowed to stay sober from something that had plagued me since I was 16. This had some bad and some good things for me within my development as a man, and I've spent countless hours thinking about this decision, right? This was the experience that I had with getting over vices. So, like I said, that might be news for some people watching this. I had dealt with a vice of smoking weed. This is something that is super, super common within the people that I've known, the people that I've been around, and it's something that is honestly probably unavoidable within my life. And you could do your best to go ahead and get away from it, but essentially, it is something that is and has been an element of my life for a lot longer than people would imagine. Right? I would say that this is something that helped shape me, and for the better or for the worse, It had nothing to do with my parents. It was something that was always within my control, right? I want to make that very very clear. I've had great parents that have steered me away from so much bad and so much evil within this world, and have avoided me from so many problems. And this has nothing to do with this has nothing to do with them raising me or anything like that. This is my own personal decision. And one thing I want to make very very clear is a lot of people, when they indulge within certain vices, this is not something that is necessarily um, something I used to cope with life with, right? This is something that I enjoyed socially, and unfortunately, it also something that I had abused probably a little bit too much, and that is what I will mention here in a minute. Shout out to Luke, appreciate for stopping by, my dog. But yes, this was something that I had struggled with for a while. I've had my periods of sobriety. I've had months where I've not smoked, and it has definitely been very, very good for my own brain development. It's been very, very good for my speech. It's been very, very good for a lot of things. In 2024, coming into this year, I had said to myself, I had not went longer than I think 2 months without smoking. So I wanted to say, I want to give it up for a whole year and see how I feel. I'm going to be sober until February. I'm not going to be sober until I'm that is when I'm giving myself the time, if I wanted to go ahead and do it, the opportunity to. Obviously, I'm an adult. I can do it if I would like, but I understand thoroughly that this has consequences. I've analyzed it and spent hours and hours analyzing the way that I am on it, the way that other people were on it, the perspective that I have has been just thoroughly thought out, and I want to describe that right now. So the thing that it has provided me is it has allowed me to become painfully aware for the best and for the worst. My observations of myself and others had been intensified by this, right? I had became painfully aware of my potential, and I had became painfully aware of this interesting element within social circle. So I didn't necessarily do it to cope with anything. I really didn't. In my life, I had my own personal struggles that I have already mentioned, right? This was another one of these struggles that I've had, but I didn't. But I wasn't necessarily coping with. I didn't use it as a cope that other people use it for. I used it to enjoy myself, and like I mentioned, I'm living this life for fulfillment and for meaning. And quite frankly, sometimes that indulging within that vice is not going to necessarily give you meaning or give you fulfillment. Um, but I do believe that it helped me progress through life by being in certain moments and taking the proper amount of time to think about certain things and to emotionally process certain things, as well as for me to really analyze my potential. I understood thoroughly that there were certain moments of me doing it, and I was like, okay, my potential is really getting hindered by this. And there were other times where I was just having a good time. I was simply just having a good time. I was being a kid, right? I was being a kid. I was being a little less mature than what I would like, and that is one thing that I want to mention right now is you must find balance within anything. If you're gonna choose to indulge within a vice, you must find some type of balance that makes sense to you. And maybe that balance is to cut it out completely, right? Or maybe the balance is to recreate a relationship with it and to restructure that relationship. And that is something that I feel like if I were to go back into that phase of life where I decide to go ahead and indulge within that experience, I would be much more careful because I understand the repercussions of this action thoroughly. I've understood thoroughly that this can ruin somebody's life very, very easily. It is this harmless little thing until it takes over your entire life, and I don't believe that I want to be a victim of that, nor would I recommend that for any person at all, to be a victim of that. But yeah, I had the option between two lives, right? And this is something that this is with anybody, right? Within an overindulgence within vices, you have one where you can be overindulgent within this, and it can control and dictate your life and the habits that you have, and it can affect literally every area of your life. Or you could use it when you only feel necessary, when it is truly only necessary, right? And don't give yourself the cop out of, oh, it's always necessary, man. No, it's none of that. It's none of that trash, bro. Balance is going to be very very key within this, and this is something that I believe going if I were to go back into this experience, something I would handle much more better, much more maturely, as I've handled pretty much everything else within my life. I've handled it in a much more mature way. It's great socially. um one thing I want to mention that I found very, very interesting with spending enough time, because I've spent 7 months, almost 8 months, not doing it at all, is it is socially a great time. And one thing that I realize about my behavior is most people are not interested in things that I'm truly enamored by. And I try my best to relate with them and try to fit in. And I consequently dumb myself down in order to try to fit in at times. And that is something that I do believe I have done more often than I would like to admit. And this has probably been my biggest flaw when it comes to my young age. This is something that I kick my own ass for all the time, and used to all the time. And this probably has been my biggest. I'm gonna say setback, but not really setback. I've made a lot of progress that a lot of people I can observe a lot of people have not made. I've answered a lot of questions that are very, very important to the character development of a man, and I live by morals and values of a good character man. And with that being said, yeah, that was just my experience. Like I said, I think it's very, very dumb. I think it's very, very dumb, and it has been my biggest flaw at a young age that I wasn't able to manage it properly. But yes, that was one thing that I wanted to mention on here. Like I said, if that's news to you, it's news to you. If it's not, it's not, man. But at the end of the day, I've surprisingly developed a lot better than what I anticipated. If I'm going to be honest with you, I've been able to adopt responsibility in certain aspects of my life. I had been able to make sacrifices that I never thought I would make up to this point, and that has been one of them. Taking a year off has been tremendous for my development, and I will continue to better manage it if I choose to go ahead and do it again. But yes, this was a big thing within my life. Like I said, maybe you can kind of see the story differently if that was an element. But quite frankly, I do believe that it didn't alter my character for the worse. I do believe it was very, very much a neutral thing within my life. It could, and like I mentioned, right, you can either observe something and say this is going to be a negative experience or this is a positive experience. At the end of the day, it is just a human experience. And with that being said, human experiences are not good or bad. They're just necessary for character development, and that is exactly what it was for me. It was something that I needed for my own character development, and it had honestly greatly um, transcended my character. It had progressed me through life. It had progressed me through certain ideas. And one thing I want to mention as well is it had given me ideas. It had given me it's a mind stimulant. It had given me certain ideas that I might have never had if I was sober, right? It had given me lifelong friends. It had given me a bond with people that you can't necessarily get being sober. And yeah, like I said, I would say in totality it is a neutral experience. But yeah, getting into the next one, I'm almost at the end of this. If you guys enjoyed this or if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments. I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. This was probably the most vulnerable I've ever been on a podcast, and this is one that it definitely means a lot to me. So now you guys can fully understand the way in which I am and the ways in which I continue to be. And one thing I want to mention with this as well, and then I'll move on from the weed subject, right? I had learned this quote, and I thought this was very, very important when it comes to the approach of anybody. And obviously, it is part of the balance, right? You must learn how to balance beneficence and rascality. And for people that do not know that, beneficence is basically going to be doing and being of moral good, choosing the right morally good action. You must find a balance between that and rascality. Rascality being acting like a rascal, being reckless. Um, I do believe life. It was an Alan Watts quote that had mentioned that the balance. You need to find somewhat of a balance between beneficence and rascality. So essentially, people are going to have their vices. Everybody has a vice to an extent, right? That is not that can be bad, but it doesn't always have to be bad. But at the end of the day, as long as you're acting morally sound, your values are clear, that can give you some leeway to go ahead and indulge within something that some other people indulge, but don't abuse it and understand thoroughly what the balance is, right? For me personally, I think with spending enough time, I think choosing to smoke 6 times out of the year or 6 months out of the year is balance. Is balance to me. I believe being locked in 90% of the time is balance to me. Indulging only 10% of my time into something that is rascality. I think that is something that is good. That is thought out. That is well structured. That is morally sound. That makes sense to me personally. And like I said, that's all that really needs to make sense to. But yeah, that is my story for the most part. Two things I want to mention before I go and end it off. Love, care, and criticism. I have a lot of love and I have a lot of care for my family and friends, and this is something that I will extend out to the podcast. I have a lot of love for the people that do watch me and do support me. And sometimes with this content, or sometimes within my own personal life, I can come off a little bit brash or harsh with my content or with some things that I say, which may rub people. This may rub people the wrong way at times. But my criticism comes from a place of deep love and deep caring for my fellow people. And if I'm being harsh on something with the podcast, or if I'm being harsh on you in real life, just know I really want the best for you. I love and care for you, and I want to see you win. And sometimes within that, I've noticed that there's not a lot of people who want to win, and there's not a lot of people who want to become better. But quite frankly, that is the way that I've treated myself, and I can't necessarily expect to hold everybody at that same standard I hold myself to. Obviously, with you watching this, I hold myself to a pretty high standard. But just know, if I ever give you criticism, understand the place that it's coming from. Understand that it's not just coming from a place of hate. It's coming from a place of true care, true deep care, and true deep love that I have for my people. And one thing that I will mention before I go ahead and end it off, which I think is something that I'm developing right now, and something that I've had and will continue to have. I want to talk about faith. Faith. Your faith in life, your faith in a lot of different things must be tested in this life to see if you truly believe what you believe, and if you truly are who you say you are. Your faith will be tested in every single aspect of life. Your faith in God, your faith in a relationship, your faith in your potential, your faith in whatever you're trying to pursue. That is going to say everything about you. And I want to stress before I go and end this off that you must have faith. I have a lot of faith in every person that is watching this, that they will be able to live out their best life if they choose what they value over what they want. And you must live life with faith, because quite frankly, why else would you want to live? You must live life having faith that the hard times that exist that may be here right now are going to get better. You must have faith that your dreams are going to come true if you're acting in accordance to being the character that is going to allow for that to be a part of their journey. You need to have faith in God. You need to have faith in something that is higher than yourself, so it can help guide you and help get you through those hard moments that life will inevitably have. So yes, faith is something that is very, very important, something that is day by day becoming more and more important to me. It is the fabric of character that I am. I'm a person who's very, very faithful. I'm a person who has faith in every single aspect of my life. And I want to stress that I don't see enough people having that type of faith within their life, within the life decisions that they've made. And I do believe that a lot of people, they need to hear that. They need to hear that message of faith. And it's going to look different for every single person, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. But other than that, this was the life of a champ. This was the story of my life. And hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully you stayed to the end. If you stayed to the end, I appreciate you very, very much. And hopefully this kind of gives you more of a foundation, so you can kind of understand some of the ways in which I think, some of my interests that I have, some of the struggles that I've gone through, and all of it has helped me become the character that I am today, that is standing right in front of you right now. And other than that, I'll be doing one-on-one coaching. If you're a person that is watched to the end and truly finds interest and needs some help, whether it's accountability, whether it's truly some life advice, I'll be doing one-on-one coaching here soon. So reach out to me in any means necessary. I have all my links to everything. Make sure you follow me on Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, at Life of a Champ Podcast on every single platform. Other than that, this was episode 201 of the Life of a Champ Podcast, talking about my story. And I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. we outwork. So make sure you outwork these motherfuckers because you know that I am, and you know that everyone around me is. They got no other choice, man. They got no other choice, man. But other than that, y'all have a good rest of your night. Tap in with the next live stream that's going to be on Monday. I'll be reacting to some videos. If there's a video that you want me to go ahead and react to, let me know for sure, and I will go ahead and react to it. Next podcast is going to be on Thursday. Tap in with that for sure. And other than that, thank you for your time and attention. And welcome to Season 3 of the Life of a Champ podcast. We're above 200 now. Let's see where it takes us. But thank you guys very, very much. And hopefully you enjoyed this.